Hey everybody, it's Professor Snart checking in. Okay, we are, where are we? Let's check our due dates. We are hopefully immersing ourselves in our online group projects. New, I think, for a lot of people who take online classes and find it a bit of a more solitary experience. So hopefully, despite the efforts we have to go through to just like basically connect with people and figure out schedules and modes of communication, you actually find it to be a productive and worthwhile exercise. Not only is the project assignment hopefully interesting, but just the opportunity to sort of work with someone, connect with people in your class a little bit more, you're finding beneficial. So it is the 24th when I'm, recording this. So we've obviously wrapped up our midterm unit, done some early connecting with our groups here, and then I'm going to walk us through 7, 8, and 9 because we'll see how they're all connected. Obviously taking a look at those due dates, especially primary ones, so we have a lot that's kind of due here, even though we're really midstream as far as our group projects go. Notice that we just have that one due date here. That'll be the final project due date. And then there's no reply component built in here because we actually spent all of Unit 9 doing a version of replying or sort of responding to or even extending the various projects that people have presented. So I'll walk us through each of these steps here. One quick note then is because we are working asynchronously, we're not in the same room at the same time. If you're running into problems sort of holding your group members accountable, people promise to do things but it doesn't get done, they're not reachable, etc., etc. It honestly doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while things kind of go off the rails. It's good to let me know about that early and do your best to keep sort of a record of your efforts to communicate with folks, and if they haven't responded or they're not contributing to the site or the docs or whatever or the slides that you're developing. Again, we don't need to like be the people police all of a sudden, but it's no good if I hear, down here in Unit 9 that, oh, my partner didn't do this or do that or whatever. And honestly, in my experience, 99.9% of the time, people are, being accountable, they're invested, they want to do well, they want to like connect with their group member and have a really good product at the end. So it actually turns out really well. So we are really in the midst of, we're kind of wrapping this part up, but this is sort of early project work here. So there's the project assignment that you should all be familiar with at this point. Again, share what you're doing with me so I can help with technical things, see what people are doing where and when. It just helps me stay sort of plugged in and shepherd things along a little bit. We have our group planning document here. Again, this is due today, October 24th, as I'm recording this. So you want to access the document, but we can actually see how it's starting to get populated by the various groups. And again, it's just a planning site, nothing super fancy here. Necessarily some ideas, we're going to text message, et cetera, and then we have the link to the project here so far. Same thing we're seeing here. Again, use a different color, format things. It doesn't have to look pretty. You just have to have an initial planning space where you're connecting with each other, but also I'm seeing that everyone in the group is like doing stuff, right? That's kind of the most important part. And then what we want is for someone in your group, only one person has to do this, is to post a link to your project so far. We get that we're just like even the midway point might be a little bit ambitious here, but hopefully you've worked with your group, you've maybe mapped out some things to do, you have some content built, but we know that it's not done. So post that, and again, by our due date here, and then the reply component built in is that every student will look at and reply to at least 2 other ongoing projects as they're unfolding here. Again, don't say it's incomplete because we know it's incomplete, but maybe provide some feedback on existing content. You can suggest some areas for development if there's kind of not a lot there, but we're just in that kind of drafting, building phase, and so it's good to get some input from as many people as possible. So sort of a lot to manage, let's say, in this unit as you're kind of developing your project, even though that project isn't necessarily due just yet. Speaking of which, though, let's jump into Unit 8. So here's really where we're just wrapping up the project. So there's actually not a lot to manage or that you have to read here. It's just making sure that, you know, each group member returning to your portfolio, build that page out. So if I'm working with 2 other people, we're all going to have a new portfolio page, but it's going to contain the exact same thing, right? Because we've all worked on whatever that project is. So if you link it, if you embed the slide deck or whatever it happens to be, and then each individual student will add his or her own paragraph, just kind of outlining, you know, how it went, what you did specifically, what was your contribution. Hopefully it feels like everyone, you know, contributed equally, but also that the projects are one holistic thing. And they're not like, if I worked in a group with 2 other people, our project feels like 3 mini projects just sort of jammed together. It's easy to happen when we're all kind of not in the room together, typing or working at exactly the same time. But again, you can take steps as a group to make sure that your project, when it's all said and done, feels like a whole project. And it goes without saying that if I'm working with 2 other people, even if we've sort of divided our labor, I should be aware of and able to talk about or understand what those other pieces are. So if we were to present these in person in a class, and I'm working with my other 2 students, and we have, let's say, 9 slides, or just for the sake of the math, each of us did 3 slides. If I'm asked a question about slides that aren't mine, I can't just say, oh, I didn't do those, I have no idea, right? That's not going to work. So the projects, even though we don't have that presentation opportunity, they should still feel like they're a coherent set of slides or pages or whatever your group has decided to build out. So again, the projects are done here. Each person is going to build out their portfolio, add a paragraph or 2, but we know that despite the fact that everyone's doing their own portfolio, they're going to all have the same like final finished project embedded for whatever the groups are. So again, no reply here. So by that October 31st Halloween date, everybody's posting their updated portfolio link, and obviously that will contain the finished project. Okay, so not a lot of text to look at here in Unit 8, but clearly the behind the scenes work is everybody working to complete their group project. Okay, so the reply component, I really like this because we return to one of my favorite tools that we use a couple of places in our course, the Padlet tool. So definitely a mobile assignment, not that you sit at your computer and complete this. You can't simply Google stuff. This has to be you finding moments in your like everyday life, quote unquote, that kind of harken back or remind you of some aspect of a project. So you can read through the assignment description here, read carefully because we had maybe some issues with a previous Padlet. If you're unsure, you can ask me about it. Again, meant to be a truly mobile assignment, so you're doing it probably on your phone. Even if you're just taking a picture on your phone and then later loading it in, it's not something that you sit statically and just Google a bunch of stuff. We're looking for 3 pictures. And again, what we're trying to do is like have you engage with other people's project materials. This is, of course, after they're all finished. Maybe you remember an idea about an author or a particular work that was famous by that author, or again, an element of how that author fits into some literary movement, maybe, whatever it happens to be. And so you're trying to make connections out into your real life. So they're not going to be literal, like, oh, here's a book by, like in this case, Hemingway, which is the subject of this particular group's project. Oh, I found a book at the library. Okay, so don't seek that stuff out. Try to make more kind of organic, imaginative, creative connections. There's no perfect sort of formula I can give you for this, but hopefully you get the idea. You're posting a minimum of 3, and what I'm going to do to make this a little bit easier is, as you can see, I've done just 1 here. As I get access to project links, I'll embed them here, and I'll do this. You can see my name here. I'll do this in our Padlet space so that when you pull the Padlet up and you're trying to do our mobile assignment, I don't expect you to necessarily link out to a whole set of slides or a whole different web page, but hopefully just having the title, the person, maybe an image, whatever shows up here, will kind of trigger in your mind, what the general topic or idea within that particular group project was. So it'll help make the mobile assignment a little bit easier. I don't expect people to like memorize what everyone else in the other groups has done. So hopefully this will act as more of like a helpful sort of memory trigger device. But I'll take care of that. And I have more of them. I just haven't posted them yet, but you'll see them populate as we get closer to Unit 9, right? Let's see what else. Use that on your phone. Don't forget to include your name just for grading purposes. Mine shows up because I log into Padlet to do this, but normally people just do this as a mobile thing, and so you're not necessarily logging in, so every post just shows as anonymous. That's why you need to add your name. But this is getting us pretty far ahead. So this is the version or the way that we'll do replying to the group projects, not just a simple discussion board thing, but really trying to extend that thinking out into our everyday life. Okay, one last quick look at due dates then. Obviously we finished here. We are right here, which means that there's actually a lot of things to do as a group. Within Unit 7, we have that feedback component. Some work time basically unfolds through these two units, finishing up the projects here, and then a turnaround to do that mobile sort of response. You'll notice that there's actually quite a bit of time given for that, since these things, like I said, they tend to unfold organically. You can't go and seek them out specifically because that kind of defeats the purpose. All right, so hopefully this gets us far enough ahead that you kind of have a map of what's coming. As always, be in touch with me if you have questions, concerns about the course, about your project. And again, if you're having communication issues, now is the time to let me know, so we'll see if we can resolve those. Not to let things get so bad that we're like way deep into the thing and then I'm having to mediate a he said, she said sort of a deal, and that's just like no fun for anybody. All right, so have a great week, and I will talk with everybody in a couple days.